Hello, and welcome to the LoRa Alliance webcast series, Destination LoRaWAN. If you are new to Destination LoRaWAN or need a few reminders on how to maximize your experience, here are a few quick housekeeping notes. Pushing F5 on your keyboard will refresh your screen if you're experiencing video or audio that's behind or slow. There's also a toolbar at the bottom of your screen, and pressing the help box will direct you to solve some of your technical issues if you are experiencing any. Another helpful box just below the video box is our Q&A, where you can submit your question throughout the webcast. Speakers are here to answer these questions. Lastly, you will see the webcast resource list, links to today's slides, along with additional relevant materials about the LoRa Alliance and how to grow your LoRaWAN business in North America can be found. And with that, I'll hand it over to Karthik Ranjan from Semtech.
Thank you very much, Sky, and welcome everyone to today's webinar. We're super excited today to talk to you about LoRaWAN's meteoric rise in driving IoT deployments in North America. We're going to be really excited to share with you what is LoRaWAN. For those of you who aren't familiar, we'll go through some concrete use case examples of how LoRaWAN gets deployed in the market, and we'll wrap up with giving you some specific areas in which you can get engaged with LoRaWAN immediately following this webinar. So let's begin by introducing our speakers. So to start with myself, my name is Karthik Ranjan. I am LoRa Cloud Solutions and Partnerships Leader here at Semtech. And I also wear a second hat, which is I'm the North American Vice Chair within the LoRa Alliance. I've been in the industry over 25 years. Prior to Semtech, I was at AWS, where I was part of the team leading the launch of a new LoRaWAN service, which one of our speakers will talk to you about in a minute. And before that, I've worked in embedded and IoT industry at companies such as Microsoft and Intel. I'm joined today also by Dave Schendel, who's Chief Technology Officer and Chief Operating Officer at Senate. He has responsibilities for research and design, product management, and product marketing. Dave is active within the LoRa Alliance as a member of the board and also chair of the Regional Parameters Working Group and a member of the Technical Committee and the Regulatory Working Group. Next, we have Mike Rohrmoser. Mike is a segment lead for IoT edge devices and partner solutions at AWS. In this role, he and his team are responsible for a global community of edge hardware partners, as well as building and enabling AWS IoT partner solutions across industry use cases, from industrial to energy utilities and retail. Mike has a strong software development background and is intimately familiar with IoT connectivity, ranging from industrial protocols to RF technologies and edge to cloud services for integration. Next, we have John Roller, who's responsible for management of Target's private LoRaWAN network and worked through the design and was a key player in the rollout, which of course has required many partners to accomplish. John has contributed back to the open source where possible from the learnings on his journey at Target, and hope you find this presentation inspiring. And last but not least, we have Jack Stewart, who's Business Development Director at Techtelic. He's responsible for identifying opportunities to grow the IoT business. Jack is constantly seeking to learn about innovative ways that IoT solutions are being implemented to help individuals and businesses improve operational efficiencies and reduce costs with LoRaWAN in various industries. So together with these 5 speakers, we will be covering the following agenda. So we'll begin by an introduction to what LoRaWAN is, for those of you who aren't familiar. We'll then take a look at some of the deployment options for LoRaWAN. What are some of the benefits and how does it work technically? Then we'll hear from some of our speakers on specific use cases which are very popular in North America, such as smart building, retail, and asset tracking. And then we'll talk a little bit about how you can get started with LoRaWAN, giving some specific tools and capabilities that you can look at following this webinar, and we will then conclude. So without further ado, let's get started. So let's begin by why do we want to connect things? Let's start with something very simple like your trash can, which is out on the street. A lot of times, my trash can looks like this, nice and neat, full to the brim, but closed at the top. Other times, it's not that way. I have a party at my house, I have extra garbage, and you know what? It overflows, and it doesn't look nice sitting on the street. Well, what if I can apply an IoT use case to it? What if I can have the trash can to be connected so that it informs the garbage collection company when it's full. So they only come around when it's full and my neighbor's is full, and they don't have to come when it's empty or not full. Seems like a very simple application for IoT. And an embedded engineer might think, oh, wait, I have a Wi-Fi network in my house. Why not just add Wi-Fi sensor to the trash can, and I can use that network to be able to connect? Well, trying that, you might find, oh gosh, the Wi-Fi doesn't reach all the way out to the street. My router's in the back of the house, and the distance of Wi-Fi only goes so far, and so I'm not able to get a signal. So then you say, all right, well, I'll just put a repeater in the front of my house. Great. Now the sensor battery dies within a few days. Wi-Fi is a high-power network and isn't well suited for something that has to last months or even years on a single battery. So when you're deploying an IoT network, it's always important to start to think about what is the right network for the job. Here on the x-axis, we have distance, and on the y-axis, we have bandwidth. Let's start with Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is a great network for my laptop, for my streaming devices, for my computers, for any device at home which is high bandwidth and within a short range. It is not great, as we saw, for something that needs to traverse a reasonably long distance and something that needs to have months, if not years, of battery life. Moving down to Bluetooth and Zigbee, again, both of these are short range, a little bit better on the power side, but still doesn't have the reach that you might need for an application like this. Moving up to the top right, we have networks like LTE, 5G, and mobile networks, which are really good, again, for your smartphone, for your computer, for cameras. But again, they're very, very high power. And if you're just sending something like, is my trash can empty or full, it's overkill and it's overpowered and not fit for the right job. So that brings us to the bottom right quadrant, which is what we call LPWAN, low power wide area networks. And this is where LoRaWAN fits very well. It provides a network which is very long range, but also designed for low power applications. And if we look at data, this is from Omdia Research, we see that in the low power wide area networks, it's really a two-horse race between LoRaWAN and NB IoT. And some of the key differences, which we'll talk about in this, are some things on the business side, but also on the technology side. Here we see on the left side some pricing models behind mobile networks, which are offering a per device per month business plan for using narrowband IoT. Certainly, if your device has to travel across the country or needs a global network, then this might be the right fit for you. In many cases, that's not the case. And something like a simple private LoRaWAN network could save you tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. Let's take a very simple example. A very popular use case in North America for LoRaWAN is vehicle lot tracking. Here in the left, we see a picture of a lot with tens of thousands of vehicles. If we work backwards and do the math in terms of what it costs to deploy a network to track all these vehicles using NB IoT versus LoRaWAN. So looking at NB IoT, using the public pricing that was shown in the previous slide, we have, let's say, 25,000 vehicles that need to, in the business model, cost $1 a month in terms of monthly service. That leads to a monthly bill of $25,000 or $300,000 a year. Let's compare that with a private LoRaWAN network. With a private LoRaWAN network, you essentially have gateways that you deploy. These are very similar to mobile base stations that you would have, but you deploy them and you manage them yourself. And they cost roughly $500 each. You can see the links here below for where we have derived all the pricing here, which is public and readily available on the web. So there you have a one-time cost of $2,500 for the infrastructure to build these gateways. Now, the gateways do need backhaul. You can use your existing backhaul. For example, if the gateway is located in the building there and you already have Wi-Fi or Ethernet, then you would not have to pay the cellular backhaul. But let's just assume for a minute that you are using a cellular backhaul for each of these. There's plenty of plans that are available such as this one from Sierra Wireless that gives you 500 gigabytes a month for $10 a month. And so even for that cost, you're paying a backhaul of $50 a month or $600 a year, which is substantially less cost savings than what you have with narrowband IoT. So this example provides some of the business value when you were comparing the two. I will now turn it over to Dave Schendel from Senate to talk to you more about the technical benefits between the two. Dave, over to you.
Thank you, Karthik. Thanks for joining our webinar. And as Karthik said, I'd like to spend some time to talk about the backgrounds of the LoRaWAN technology and some of the interesting applications that you can imagine for it, and how networks get designed and built for LoRaWAN as well. As Karthik was mentioning, we see this space, the low power wide area networking space that LoRaWAN is the predominant player in, as very, very important, very interesting in the market. Arguably, like we see stats that show it as more than half of the total connected devices will be connected via technologies like this. And this is complementary to the other kinds of technologies that you might be used to and be using today, as Karthik mentioned, with Wi-Fi or 5G and various others. They fill different niches and different applications. But as we look at these very cost-efficient devices that are moving small amounts of information, low power wide area networking, and LoRaWAN specifically is a fantastic solution to solve those problems. And it can do it in a variety of ways, with a variety of business models that fit behind it as well, that give you a lot of flexibility as you bring those to the market. The LoRaWAN architecture itself is a centralized star architecture. In this model, we can show you the four different major characteristics of that. Of course, on the left-hand side, we have your connected device, what you see in the field, the connected garbage can, if you will. We have the gateways that are providing the coverage in that area, physically mounted maybe on building tops, on transmission towers, or maybe mounted in your wiring closets in your enterprise as well. Of course, that's connected to the LoRaWAN network server. The network server is the centralized point that is controlling the RF performance of all of the devices. It's arbitrating the onboarding identity management of those devices as well, with a completely secure end-to-end model. And then on the far right-hand side, we, of course, are connecting these devices and streaming data up to the application server component. This is where the data becomes real, if you will, becomes valuable, and gets presented, it gets visualized, it can be acted upon at that level. This architecture is fully bidirectional, so messages flow from the end devices towards the application servers, and of course in the reverse direction as well for command and control activities. Some of the interesting technical elements that really set LoRaWAN apart from all of the other players in the space and all of the other wireless connectivity that you may be familiar with. And we'll talk in more detail about a couple of these points as we go on. So public and private network deployment options, we'll talk about that a little bit later in more detail, but that flexibility is very, very important, and it's very unique in the wireless communication space. Firmware updates over the air, again, we'll talk about this in a little bit more detail as well. Geolocation, so the ability to identify the location of an end device without requiring anything specific of that end device. So no GPS receivers necessarily or other things like that. That's part of the intrinsic technology. That's part of the LoRaWAN solution. Fully bidirectional, and security is built in. This is very, very important for our IoT devices. Bidirectionality is what enables configuration of those devices, changing the behavior of the device, of course, doing things like firmware updates. And of course, in today's day and age, everything has to have the utmost security, and that's been built in as part of the standard. It's required of all implementations of LoRaWAN. We're looking for 10+ year battery life on AA size batteries in these devices. So that really translates to how you can deploy this very, very easily and very, very cost effectively at massive scale. Coverage is very, very important as well. So very long range capabilities. Long range coverage is certainly important in rural areas, but also provides very good costs and economic benefits when you're providing coverage models, as Karthik was just demonstrating with his auto lot example, to very inexpensively deliver coverage to a very large number of devices. And of course, the RF characteristics themselves here in the sub-gigahertz allow very, very deep penetration through many different environments. In dense urban environments, it operates very well as in those rural outdoor areas. Want to dig in a little deeper to a couple of the unique advantages that are very, very important to the technology and enable implementations that leverage it to really realize some incredible benefits. So one of them I want to talk about is command and control situations. So there's a unique capability, we call it Class B operation, which is the ability for the backend, for the application, for the user with his iPad or his web application to autonomously, on his own accord, reach down to the device and with very, very low latency, command the device to perform an operation. In this case, we have a gas valve. That gas valve will be commanded to turn on or turn off based on situations like methane leaks and things like that. And it can be done very, very effectively, while at the same time being able to still deliver very, very long life out of a battery-powered end device. So we have implementations that are part of the ecosystem that are using this capability and are still delivering battery-powered operations for 10 or even 20 years under warranty. So very, very important. In other technologies, in order to get that downlink latency, the device has to be very, very chatty, constantly talking with the network to give it opportunities to communicate with it and provide that control. In this case, that would preclude it from being able to operate as a battery-powered device, of course. Lots of interesting use cases, on-demand meter reading, valve control, asset recovery, so the ability to command a device to go into a beaconing mode so that you can send the local law enforcement folks to go find that scooter that got stolen or that car that got stolen. So very, very important and unique use cases. We'll talk about the next component, which leverages some of that capability as well, is the ability to do firmware updates to these end devices over the air. The way that we do this is very unique, and it's extraordinarily efficient, like everything is with LoRaWAN. So we provide a set of tools that enable the efficient and secure delivery of large binary files to entire fleets of end devices simultaneously. And this is what's really unique about this. And if you look at how this compares to capabilities, particularly in the cellular sort of solutions or in Wi-Fi solutions as well, those updates are delivered a device at a time. They consume an enormous amount of bandwidth, probably blow your data plan out of the water. In LoRaWAN, we do this with a true RF broadcast. We simulcast this to the entire group of devices at the same time. Typically, it takes somewhere in the range of 5 to 10 minutes to update an entire fleet. And it may consume around a % or so of the battery capacity. So we're not doing Patch Tuesdays, but this is a really important tool for ensuring the security of your end devices as security targets change over time, as well as making sure that you have the ability to reconfigure end devices when your customer decides that things need to change in terms of how the device is behaving. At the solution level, there are a couple of additional really important advantages with LoRaWAN and the LoRa Alliance. So one of the ones I want to mention is the ability to do low-touch, no-touch deployments. This is super important. When we look at the opportunities associated with low-power wide-area networking, it's massive-scale IoT. It's the ability to deploy hundreds of thousands and millions of devices and still deploy them and operate them at an extremely low cost. This is critically important, and the entire LoRaWAN architecture and all the specifications that have been created have been written in such a way as to facilitate this. Centralized control, manufactured with security built in. Those devices can be onboarded to any network, any LoRaWAN network in the world, and know that they can operate seamlessly with those additional networks without any user intervention at the actual point of deployment itself. So that's really important. There's a very similar component in the network side as well. With networks, the gateways themselves centrally controlled. This means that it's very, very easy to deploy gateways. When we work with customers who are doing their own gateway deployments, the instructions really are generally as simple as plug it into power and walk away. That's all you need to do. Karthik had mentioned that the gateways are similar to 3GPP base stations in the sense that they are, but they really are vastly scaled down, much more simple than those kinds of cellular solutions really are that you may be familiar with. Network capacity is another important capability here. So when some of the early low-power wide area solutions were introduced, they really were completely coverage-driven, so you couldn't add capacity to those networks. LoRaWAN is unique in that we are dynamically managing all of those end devices all of the time, and we are provisioning them to maximize the performance of the network and the performance of the end device. So to maximize the battery efficiency of the end device and the overall capacity of the network and the coverage that it provides. So very, very important capabilities that, again, drive the overall cost of the solution down and provide for that massive scale deployment capabilities. The final point I want to mention here is the maturity of the ecosystem. So the LoRa Alliance was founded in early 2015. By many companies, small and large, from startups like ourselves to Fortune 110 companies that are part of the solution. So very, very wide ecosystem, hundreds of players that are participating, and they've been doing this for many years now. And this is really important because we've seen that ecosystem grow from immaturity, where it's hard to get solutions. It's hard to get a radio module that does what you're looking for, or an end device that does what you're looking for, or to get network connectivity. And we've really have jumped so far since that time, where all of those capabilities are there. You have many, many choices in the ecosystem for the suppliers and partners that you want to do business with. And the capabilities of the solutions they're providing are very, very mature after all those years of work. And that's very different than many of the other low power wide area solutions that you are seeing in the market right now that are brand new, that don't have those ecosystems. Maybe they'll get them over time, but it takes a long time to get there. And that's a real important advantage of working with LoRaWAN. So I'll spend a few minutes also now talking about the networks that get deployed to support LoRaWAN. We have kind of at a high level a couple of different ways that we use to describe the networks that are deployed, and then we'll talk also about the business models effectively associated with that as well. So certainly developers can get engaged right away for no cost, low cost implementations using a wide variety of partners that are out there in the market to help them understand the technology, prototype some designs, get going very, very quickly, and very, very inexpensively. That's really all about ease of use and getting there quickly. As we move towards the right, we get more and more sophisticated networks with more and more capabilities, and sometimes with a little bit more cost associated with them as well. So the next step would really be kind of crowdsourced commercial networks. So these would be networks that are built by communities that are maybe servicing small enterprise solutions. Maybe they are servicing a combination of enterprise and university and developer capabilities, but they're contributing all those gateways into a common whole. Very, very interesting, very, very organic, a great kind of democratization of the IoT space for sure. The next online is what we call private or enterprise-style networks, and these are implemented typically by, for example, like an IT organization in the same way that a standard network might be implemented. So typically looking at a set of use cases that are driven by a specific example or a specific application within a confined space. So those devices and those gateways are deployed in such a way that they really work just with each other. They're not participating in any of these crowdsourced or carrier-grade public networks. But it's really important that these kinds of networks exist because they really enable all capabilities, all kinds of partners to take advantage of the capabilities of LoRaWAN. And then finally, on the carrier-grade side, so this is more what you would think of with traditional operators building large public networks. Many of these exist around the world. These are fully managed. Typically have SLAs backing the capabilities and the availability of that network. Highly scalable, very, very dense in many cases, supporting critical business opportunities and critical infrastructure monitoring. So very, very important that those kinds of networks, you understand how they get built and who's operating them. But the next slide really talks about the unique capabilities that we have with LoRaWAN and those different kinds of networks that we just talked about to form different kinds of relationships amongst those different kinds of networks and how they're being operated. Kind of reversing the flow from the last slide, we can look at public networks, so your traditional carriers building large outdoor networks, offering what we call network as a service, so the ability to connect and get coverage from an operator. In North America, certainly there are some interesting trends that are in the news right now. Senate certainly participates in this part of the space and has since 2015, actually, early 2015. But there's new players that are coming in as well that are starting to build out more and more capabilities there. And we've seen how effective that can be, particularly in areas of Europe and Asia already. The private owner-operated, owner-economic kind of style networks, again, kind of match some of those characteristics of the kinds of networks we defined before. we see a lot of growth in this area. And again, that offers the ability to bring coverage someplace where maybe an operator hasn't provided coverage yet, or the coverage they're providing isn't quite the kind of coverage that you need. You need dense indoor. You're covering up solutions inside of basements, inside of buildings that require a little bit of augmented coverage in that case. So these private networks really offer a control your own destiny sort of path in terms of your business model. But what's really unique is that in LoRaWAN, we can take and combine those different kinds of networks together seamlessly. So we can have the combination of public networks, private networks, both with the same operator potentially. We can connect between multiple operators, so you have the ability to roam between different network solutions. And that hybrid mode of coverage is really, really interesting and really important. One of the things we see in the market a lot when we see customers who are entertaining going maybe with a cellular solution with Narrowband IoT or LTM is the question of what happens when I deploy that meter in this location and it doesn't have cellular coverage. Well, there's really nothing that you're going to do. In the LoRaWAN case, if the operator doesn't happen to have coverage that covers that particular area, you can work with that operator and the utility, municipality to build that out, maybe as a private network that augments seamlessly with the public network that's being used elsewhere. So just a couple of points to wrap up here around the ecosystem and the market momentum that we're seeing. We're seeing a lot of really interesting movement in the ecosystem here in North America. I want to talk about a couple of areas specifically in the utility space. So I would say that in large-scale deployments for massive-scale IoT, the utilities are really one of the most interesting areas. And specifically here, we're really looking primarily at water utilities and natural gas utilities kind of coming on as a fast follower to the early work that the water utilities have done. These are really, really interesting applications, devices that are meant to be battery powered for typically around 20 years is the target life for these kinds of devices. They're communicating hourly meter reads in many cases. They sometimes have the ability to do valve command and control, so you can shut off the water, shut off the gas, do those sorts of things. So very, very interesting and a lot of momentum in this area, not just in the AMI space in both of those categories, but in the infrastructure space that backs them as well. We're seeing some increasing interest in the electric grid side on infrastructure monitoring as well, and that in North America often partners with the natural gas companies. The follow-on from some of those interesting, I'll call them kind of anchor use cases in the utility space, are around municipal services and supply chain. So these are areas where once these networks have been established, once these things are moving, now you have lots of opportunities for interesting smart city applications, as well as asset tracking and condition monitoring solutions that are very, very interesting and appropriate for these kinds of networks and implementations. And then last but not least, we'll talk about industrial and enterprise. So these, in many cases, are more the private style networks that are being deployed and are very, we're seeing a lot of increase in this as well, particularly around condition monitoring. So we see a lot around cold chain applications, around smart building solutions as well, worker safety, these sorts of applications for a whole wide range of industries that fall within those two categories. Lots of growth, lots of momentum here. We're seeing a really exciting kind of uptick in the number of devices, the number of networks, and the number of participants in the market here in North America. And with that, I'd like to close out my section and hand it over to Mike from Amazon Web Services. Mike.
Thank you, Dave. So today I will cover a use case example for LoRaWAN that's based on Crisisco's safety one-click offering, which actually is a public safety use case, but it also is a smart building solution at heart, as you will see. And Crisisco's offering addresses the growing number of school emergencies, whether they're weather-related, medical, or safety, with a need for quick and efficient communication between internal staff and first responders. So it's a perfect example also, as you will see, of how multiple partners in the LoRa partner community, like AWS, of course, and Laird, Multitech, and RadioBridge, come together to resolve IoT complexity and deliver customer outcome with a public safety partner such as Crisisco. So Crisisco selected AWS IoT for LoRaWAN as a fully managed LNS that enables customers to set up a private LoRaWAN network and connect wireless devices using the LoRaWAN protocol with the AWS cloud. So this frees customers from the need to develop or operate a LoRaWAN network server, simplifies the gateway and device onboarding, and also reduces the cost of connecting and managing LoRaWAN device fleets at scale. So Crisisco's Safety One-Click offering relies on AWS IoT Core for LoRaWAN to manage device gateway connections to the cloud and provide reliable, long-range wireless device connectivity independent of cellular or Wi-Fi networks while using LoRaWAN compliant off-the-shelf gateways and sensors. So the easy setup and management offered by AWS IoT Core for LoRaWAN makes it a cost-effective connectivity solution that also reduces installation and maintenance costs for customers. Relying on the performance and reliability of AWS helps delivering the consistent and reliable operation that is required for a solution like Crisisco One-Click. So AWS IoT Core also for LoRaWAN also includes support for the open source LoRaWAN Gateway LNS Communication Protocol Basic Station, of course, which means no writing or testing of custom gateway software is required to connect LoRaWAN gateways to AWS IoT Core. Once LoRaWAN gateways and devices are connected, device data is automatically routed to AWS IoT Core rules engine, and also thus accelerating IoT application development and offering full end-to-end security. Developers can write rules like simple SQL queries to transform and act on the device data, raising alerts or routing it to other AWS services like Amazon S3 for storage using the AWS IoT Core rules engine. And from the console, engineers can also create metrics for connected devices and gateways to troubleshoot connectivity issues. And with the AWS pay-as-you-go pricing and no monthly commitments, customers can also connect and scale LoRaWAN device fleets reliably and build applications with AWS services quickly and efficiently. And lastly, the AWS Partner Device Catalog also provides customers with LoRaWAN gateway choice and selection from AWS partners that have qualified the hardware to work with AWS IoT Core for LoRaWAN. So Crisisco has developed Safety One-Click to address the growing need for schools to quickly communicate, particularly during emergencies, as I mentioned. So the system makes it easy and fast to share notifications and allow recipients to understand mission-critical information from an urgent safety event to network failures and more. The mobile and desktop applications share critical and informational communications with designated staff, and communications can be extended to automatically inform first responders, for example, during select events, saving precious time. Safety One-Click is part of the Crisisco suite of products designed with facility safety and security in mind. Hence also my comment about it's also at heart, while it is public safety, it is a smart building solution. And Crisisco provides school staff with a comprehensive crisis management system that covers prevention, preparation, response management, and recovery all the way to integration. So Crisisco Safety One-Click was developed to address these communication needs, but delivering the information quickly and privately to the safety stakeholders in the organizations and specifically schools. So how does it work? So pressing the Crisisco Safety One-Click physical IoT button, or the panic button essentially, triggers the gateway to transmit an alarm to Crisisco service within seconds, which immediately activates an alert, allowing the organization to respond appropriately. So the signal is communicated over our LoRaWAN system for reliable, low-power communication, ensuring the wireless IoT buttons remain operational for long periods between battery changes. In addition to the hardware, the software managed in the system has many valuable additional features. It does leverage, of course, AWS to manage the data and compliance logs. It is compliant with regulations like Alyssa's law, a requirement to address law enforcement response times during a life-threatening emergency at a school. It provides cloud-based system status monitoring, and of course, cloud-based programming and firmware updates. So who receives the notification? A system administrator can actually determine the notification recipients in advance, preparing the system for when a button is activated. This list can include site staff, external staff, such as district personnel, and also, as I mentioned, first responders. So the installation of the Safety One-Click hardware is particularly simple. So the hardware actually arrives completely pre-configured for each installation. So customers unpack the hardware, apply power, and connect it to a wired or Wi-Fi network. Next, they configure the IoT button for its intended use and determine the notification recipients. And this includes options for trigger events like evacuation, lockdowns, hold, lockout, or shelter in place. So Safety One-Click is more than just a panic alert system. It delivers a wide range of benefits that continue to be useful for information dissemination, to provide staff with a sense of being in the know. So some of the challenges that you can see from a customer perspective here, specifically schools, is you have the need to quickly and easy report an alert, where Safety One-Click can help. escalation of events quickly to the safety teams and public safety authorities, which can save, valuable time, like saving 30 to 50 seconds on average in the handling of an incident, coordination of responses according to safety plans, and then also actually using retrofitting costs and underwrite network setups that you might have in certain facilities like a school. And so what Safety One-Click actually delivers based on LoRaWAN is essentially a mission-critical LoRaWAN application with AWS IoT Core for LoRaWAN at the heart to securely connect those wireless panic buttons, completely pre-configured, and in a reliable and easy-to-deployable way. So the installation, as I mentioned, is also very straightforward and simple. So the hardware actually arrives pre-configured for each site that has ordered a specific kit that Crisisco makes available. Those kits are actually also built and delivered and fulfilled by a LoRa partner, the AWS partner as well, CalChip Connect. And so customers unpack the hardware, which includes the gateway, which is a layered gateway, the radio bridge, multi-tag panic button, and all the related accessories. They apply power, and they're connected to a wire or existing Wi-Fi network. And after that, they simply configure the IoT button for its use case and determine the notification recipients. So it's a very straightforward, simple way of deploying them, and that's very an important aspect of the entire system. Because if you look, for example, at school personnel, even a superintendent at a school can easily install this system right out of the box without having any technical knowledge and activate it. So combining hardware and software into a single solution, Crisisco's Safety One-Click, they actually collaborated with technology partners who provide valuable components to the solution success. So I mentioned CalChip Connect before and layered and multi-tech radio bridge. So Crisisco actually built Safety One-Click using those LoRa technology partners. So like I said, CalChip Connect on the integration side, on the delivery side and pre-provisioning, layered for the gateway, and multi-tech radio bridge for the actual physical panic button. So Safety One-Click is available from Crisisco. For an initial consultation and learn how Safety One-Click can be implemented in your organization, you can simply go to visit Crisisco's website. And please also go to the AWS IoT website to learn more about AWS IoT for LoRaWAN in terms of how you can use this service, how the managed MS offering works that AWS provides. And now I would like to hand it over to John from Target.
Thank you, Mike. As Mike said, I'm John Ressler, a lead engineer at Target. I've been primarily responsible for rolling out and managing Target's private LoRaWAN network that we've rolled out over the last year to support an interesting use case that I'm here to share today. So the opportunity that Target has been faced with, like many companies that offer groceries or any perishable items, is a demand from guests to be able to pick up those groceries. And for Target, that means two things. It means they order pickup, so a guest to be able to come into the store and pick up their groceries from the same order pickup counter that you pick up your clothes or anything else. It also means being able to get your groceries via drive up. So if you just want to stay in your car, your kids, or you just didn't want to come inside, obviously with things going on in the last year, that was another option. And so Target had been working on various solutions to be able to offer this fresh grocery pickup to their guests. And you might say, it's just groceries. What's so difficult about that? Well, there's a few things going on here. So in the middle here of my slide, I call it food safety. So a big thing initially is in order to have food, for sale for guests, there's various regulations that come into play. And so the temperature has to be monitored regularly. I have to be able to assert on, that the food stayed within, within a safe bounds. And for Target, there's also was a cooler capacity issue. So we can't go dedicating cooler space on the floor in your regular milk aisle to a guest pickup station. It'd also make the logistics very difficult from getting it from that particular location, which happens to be in the back of the store, out to guests. And so, also from the monitoring standpoint, those existing coolers are connected into a hardwired system. And the cost to extend that wiring, say from where the coolers are in the back of a Target store up to the front of the store where the guest pickup station is, was prohibitively expensive, to the thousands of dollars to run wiring through the ceiling all the way to that location. So that led Target to start to consider a wireless option. So they knew they wanted to do these standalone coolers up by the guest pickup. And so the team started to look at various solutions, looked at Wi-Fi, looked at Bluetooth, looked at some other proprietary networks in the 900 megahertz spectrum. And due to reasons that others before me in the slides called out, there was a lot of things that just weren't quite right for this use case. It's a very simple in terms of the data, right? It's just a temperature. We just need to know what temperature is the cooler, every 5 minutes. And so that led our team to meeting with some folks that shared about LoRaWAN. And when we started to hear about, the flexibility, the open nature, the ecosystem that would allow us to use many different devices and potentially solve future use cases that we didn't even know yet today, it was all, very exciting. And so, how could this enable Target to solve other problems, to, potentially someday even drive, value to the guests? And so for this specific use case with the coolers, Target, went forward and said, yes, let's embrace LoRaWAN. Let's enable all of our stores across the United States with LoRaWAN. And then, we said, okay, well, we need coolers, and let's get a cooler and attach a LoRaWAN sensor, a temperature sensor to that cooler. And that was our initial pilot with a few stores. And then we started having conversations and working with the cooler manufacturer. The ones that you see here, this is True Manufacturing. And we worked with them to actually have the LoRaWAN sensor manufactured directly into the refrigerator, into the cooler. I said refrigerator there, but I really mean cooler, because it's both refrigerators and freezers. And True now sells these coolers with LoRaWAN sensor in them. So you can directly, if your company has a need for coolers that are LoRaWAN enabled, you can go and get them. And Target now has these across our stores that are enabling both, that I mentioned earlier, the order pickup where you come into the counter, and the drive up where a team member will bring it out to you. And you can see in the picture here what one of these coolers looks like, full of the guests' produce there. And this was our first big LoRaWAN use case. And so this is what drove rolling out, the budget to roll out LoRaWAN to all of our stores. And so we now have a private LoRaWAN network and are excited to see what the future of LoRaWAN holds at Target. Now I'm going to turn over the presentation to Jack Stewart with Tektelic to share more about LoRaWAN use cases.
All right, thank you, John. So as a quick introduction, my name is Jack Stewart, and I'm a business development director at Tektelic. I'm delighted to join this webinar today to discuss how LoRaWAN is helping to solve real challenges here in North America, specifically in the area of asset tracking. Before we get into the details, I would like to speak a little bit about why LoRaWAN is an ideal wireless technology for asset tracking projects. Earlier in the session, both Dave and Karthik introduced you to many of the key features and differentiators of LoRaWAN, and I would like to tie these to asset tracking specifically. As you know, LoRaWAN is ideal for projects requiring long-range data transmission. In fact, it's not uncommon for an outdoor LoRaWAN device to be able to transmit 10 plus kilometers to its gateway. And this is particularly useful in enterprise deployments where a company may be tracking or monitoring the movement of people or assets in remote areas that may be outside of traditional cellular connectivity, The long-range capabilities of LoRaWAN also allow for larger coverage areas with less infrastructure required. Now, many organizations also need to track assets indoors, and the deep indoor penetration capabilities of LoRaWAN makes this possible. So we and many of the other partners in the LoRaWAN ecosystem have customers deploying indoor networks that need to reach difficult RF environments, such as basements or parking garages. And LoRaWAN has proven to be an ideal solution for these hard-to-reach areas. Of course, one of the most notable benefits of LoRaWAN is its low power functionality. And this is especially important for asset tracking projects where it may not be feasible to frequently visit an asset you are tracking to replace or recharge batteries. In many LoRaWAN deployments, it's possible to achieve 10+ years battery life of a tracking device, as David mentioned, which greatly minimizes operational costs and reduces the logistical complexity of managing a network. Now, speaking of the reduced costs, as LoRaWAN operates in the unlicensed band, this also makes it a very low-cost networking option, as Karthik outlined in his AutoPark example. And this is combined with the logistical savings from reduced network maintenance, making LoRaWAN an ideal IoT technology for operators looking for the lowest total cost of ownership solution. LoRaWAN also supports time division of arrival, or TDOA, geolocation, which means you can locate your assets even if they're not integrated with traditional location technologies like GPS or Bluetooth. If a device is in the vicinity of 3 or more LoRaWAN gateways, it's possible to analyze certain characteristics of the packets being transmitted by the devices and received by the gateways, such as timestamp, signal strength, those sorts of things. You can then run a series of calculations to pretty accurately geolocate the position of the device without having any sort of traditional location technologies integrated. Now, finally, in addition to the TDOA methodology I just mentioned, LoRaWAN networks also accommodate various methodologies of tracking your assets, and some of these involve integration with other highly available location technologies such as GPS, GNSS, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi. I'll talk a little bit more about these later in the presentation. But next, I'd like to speak a little bit about some of the key use cases that LoRaWAN asset tracking deployments are solving here in North America. So I'm going to start with the outdoor picture. Most commonly, we see customers looking to deploy LoRaWAN asset tracking networks to locate and monitor valuable outdoor equipment, especially when that equipment moves through remote locations. These assets can include anything from shipping containers, pallets, rail cars, cattle and livestock, industrial equipment. We even have some customers who are doing some interesting asset tracking use cases on golf courses with the tracking of golf carts and golf course maintenance vehicles. So lots of different areas. But when we engage with our customers who are interested in these types of projects, we learned that theft and lost assets are some of the most costly and impactful challenges that they face. And a LoRaWAN asset tracking solution can mitigate the risks and losses associated with this. Now, the LoRaWAN ecosystem also contains members, including Tectelic and others, with asset tracking hardware and solutions available for hazardous location environments, which require enhanced certifications. In North America, we refer to it as Class 1 Div 2 certification. ATEX, it's called in Europe, so where there may be combustible gases and dusts present. And having the hardware in the ecosystem with these sort of certifications expands the availability of the technology and also provides solutions for some of the most challenging environments. Now, moving on to the indoor picture, again, typically the intention here is that companies are looking to locate and monitor valuable equipment. But as mentioned on the last slide, LoRaWAN is an ideal technology for providing coverage in difficult RF environments. And some of the most difficult RF environments in the indoor space include hospitals, retail environments, such as what was introduced by John at Target earlier, high-density office buildings, warehouses, manufacturing facilities, and multi-building campuses, such as, office parks, university campuses. Oftentimes, those types of environments require both indoor and outdoor coverage to light up the full campus. And an asset tracking network with LoRaWAN not only allows you to locate your assets, but also provides you the ability to analyze movement patterns of people and assets, allowing you to make smart decisions. This is particularly valuable in, let's say, a retail environment where you could track shopping carts to see shopper movement patterns and behaviors. You could then leverage that data that you've collected to set up merchandising displays or group items throughout the store accordingly. So with the data you're collecting, you can make very powerful decisions for your business. And then finally, as I mentioned earlier, LoRaWAN integrates very nicely with other technologies such as Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, providing a comprehensive, highly available, and massively scalable end-to-end tracking solution. And I'll give you an example here. So let's say you are operating a shipping yard and you're looking to track pallets as they're stored and moved throughout your site. You could cover your full shipping yard quite easily and any of the buildings within the site with LoRaWAN connectivity to ensure that the pallets are always being tracked when they're on site. Let's say a pallet is outdoors. It may be equipped with a device that locates the asset through GPS and then sends this data into the network over LoRaWAN. But if this pallet were to move indoors or even under, say, a cover or a canopy, the device will no longer be able to see the sky, and the connection to the satellite may be lost, which of course would disrupt your ability to track the pallet. Now, in this case, if the device were also equipped with an indoor technology like BLE or Wi-Fi, that technology could essentially take over in the event that the GPS connectivity was lost, and you can continue to track that asset even when it's indoors on your property. In the LoRaWAN ecosystem, there are many, many tracking devices available that integrate multiple technologies, which accommodates continuous, reliable tracking in any environment. I'd like to just take a quick minute to showcase a real LoRaWAN asset tracking project that Tectelic is supporting today with one of our partners in the pharmaceutical space. So we're working with a multinational pharmaceutical company to assist them in tracking valuable pharmaceutical assets as they move through the company's campuses and facilities. These typically include mobile mixers, mobile pressure vessels, pallet jacks, forklifts, even material inventory. And we're assisting this customer with an end-to-end solution to track these assets across full campuses, including multiple buildings and multiple floors. Typically, these environments are warehouses and production facilities, but really the real value here is that we're providing a solution to track assets in multiple facilities across multiple campuses in various geographic regions, all on one LoRaWAN network. And this gives our customer the ability to track, visualize, and manage all of their assets in a central location. We're leveraging all of the features that I've just discussed over the past few slides to deliver a solution that utilizes various technologies, all being sent to the network with LoRaWAN. So to wrap things up, just like to give a little bit of a plug to the LoRaWAN asset tracking solutions that we have available at Tectelic. As a company, Tectelic has adopted the mantra, "It just works," or IoT just works, as we acknowledge that the only way that the adoption of IoT solutions is going to be accelerated and scale is if the solutions being created and deployed just work. This means that the solutions can be deployed simply and easily by anyone, regardless of their technical background, and will work right out of the box. And we as an organization strive to live up to this mantra with everything that we do. So we help to empower our clients to join the IoT ecosystem seamlessly without any hassle. And we've applied this philosophy when developing a comprehensive portfolio of LoRaWAN gateways, devices, and solutions for any deployment environment across many different use cases. Now, with regards to asset tracking specifically, we have a suite of both indoor and outdoor asset trackers, which of course also integrate other technologies like GPS and BLE. We even have hazardous location certified trackers and beacons for those environments which require Class 1 Div 2 or ATEX certification, where combustible and flammable dusts and gases are present, as I mentioned earlier. And we've developed a comprehensive real-time location services application, which is called Locus, to help our customers visualize, manage, locate, and keep tabs on their most valuable assets. So if you'd like any more information about any of these solutions, if you'd like to talk about LoRaWAN for asset tracking in general, feel free to reach out to me. You can visit tectelic.com. You can find us on social media, and we'd be happy to discuss it further. That's it for me, so I'm going to send it back to Karthik.
Thank you very much, Jack. All right, so now let's move over. You've heard from several speakers about LoRaWAN. You've heard about the use case from Mike about Crisisco. We've heard about the retail use case from John at Target. And we heard about asset tracking use cases from Jack. Now let's put it all together and talk about how you can get involved with LoRaWAN. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is really about the LoRa Alliance and what we offer. So the LoRa Alliance is an open industry organization that's really responsible for the standardization of LoRaWAN. It includes hundreds of companies, including cloud providers like you heard from Amazon, Alibaba. We have network operators such as Orange and Comcast. We have gateway providers like Tectelic and Cisco and Multitech, and a myriad of other software and device manufacturers. So one of the groups within the LoRa Alliance is the certification group. And the certification group is really responsible for taking devices and making sure that they work very well and are compliant to the LoRaWAN specification so that you as a vendor can feel comfortable and be able to use it and deploy it on your network. So what they have here is a catalog on the LoRa Alliance website. So if you go to LoRaWAN's.com and you click on the device showcase, you're going to see over 425 different devices which are out there. So these could be things like temperature sensors, like we heard in the Target use case for the fridge. They could be panic buttons, like we heard about the Crisisco use case. They could be about valves that you control, like you heard about from Dave, or some of the asset tracking devices like from Tectelic that you heard from Jack. So definitely take a look at that. Also wanted to point out, you might not find every device you're looking for there. And so in order to help you with that, Semtech has created something called Pinpoint, which is an RFP service. Semtech provides the silicon for the radios that go into all LoRaWAN devices. And so you will see the service that you can click on here. You can submit it to Semtech, and Semtech will reach out to our ecosystem, post your request for a device, and we will help you find a device if you cannot find one off the shelf there from the catalog. So this is a complimentary service that we offer to the ecosystem to discover new devices. So definitely take advantage of that. So let's jump over now and talk about how you can actually get your hands on LoRaWAN and actually try it out for yourself. So we have a number of kits that we have assembled. I'll talk about some of the developer kits that we have. So we see two at the top here, one from Multitech and Tectelic. These are designed to work with the AWS IoT Core for LoRaWAN service, which you heard Mike talk about previously. These provide a gateway, they provide a sensor, and they really go towards solving, helping you as a developer really understand how to build your own network, how to get data in the cloud, and how to do something with that data in the cloud, such as, hey, the temperature is over a threshold. Let's send out a text message to alert you. So those are definitely two options. We also have more use case-centric options that you can try out, such as this indoor air quality monitor from Actility. So this includes, again, gateway hardware, device hardware, sample application that pulls together a variety of different components and capabilities that for testing indoor air quality. Also a very similar one with food safety and cold chain monitoring. Again, a very, very popular use case in North America. A lot of restaurants have to go through a lot of work in order to reach compliance to make sure the food is always kept at the same temperature. LoRaWAN is a great fit for that, and this kit would be a good way to get started. And then last but not least, we have two other kits from Tensor IoT. These are one, which is an asset tracking kit, again, playing to the use case that Jack talked about. It includes a gateway. It includes trackers. You can deploy the gateway. You can put the trackers on your fleet, and you can see them all on a map. There's also a smart building kit that includes a variety of different sensors, things like desk monitors, things like room monitors, things like counting people in an area, leak monitoring, door window sensors. So all these different use cases that you would have inside of a smart building. Again, none of these have monthly fees or anything like that. You buy it once, you get a login to a dashboard, and you can see your sensors and your devices inside a cloud application. Again, very simple. Take a look at the links, download this presentation, and definitely look at them. So with that, we'd also like to encourage you to come join us within the LoRa Alliance. I can share we've had hundreds of new members join in the last year. A lot of them are really coming. This is where IoT is happening. You get a chance when you're part of the Alliance to come in and learn about new features, new capabilities. We're constantly innovating, building new features into LoRaWAN, really listening to our members, trying to understand what are the next things they need in order for their business to be successful, take that input in, and iterate on the next features. The other thing is, as we come out of COVID, it's a great chance to network and work with the ecosystem. We have an all members meeting that's planned for Paris next year in Q1. Definitely encourage you to look at that. Join before then, come out. There's a lot of value. We've been really good at conducting everything virtually, but we will, as soon as things open up, move back to face-to-face. And again, it's a real chance to interact with the ecosystem. All those kits we showed you, all the use cases you showed before, it's not one vendor who provides all that. It's a variety of different vendors. And the beauty is that it all works together. That's the great thing about LoRaWAN, which really enables us all to talk amongst each other and really discuss how to bring these groundbreaking use cases to life. And that's really the benefit of joining the Alliance, is you get a chance to come in and contribute your ideas and have that be part of something bigger. So how can you get started? You can see here on the resource list to the right, you should be able to download a copy of our membership benefits. You can use the button below that links to the LoRa Alliance site, and you can get more information there. And of course, if you need to, you can contact admin@LoRaAlliance.org, and we'll be very, very happy to take your questions and answer anything that you might be curious about. So with that, this concludes the main portion of our webinar for today. We'd like to give a special thanks to our sponsors, Comcast Machine Q, Charter Communication, and Birds, for being a sponsor for the webinar, with Comcast being a gold sponsor and the two silver sponsors, Birds and Charter. Again, we'd like to thank you for that. And you please do visit our website. You can find all the upcoming Destination LoRaWAN webinars here. You can click on Destination LoRaWAN Hub in the resources list. And this webcast will be available for on-demand downloading within 24 hours of this live webcast. So please check it out. And with that, I would like to thank everyone for joining today's webinar and wish you a very pleasant day.